Yes, I want to welcome Bill Tortorella to the Harmony Power broadcast. I am so deeply excited and honored to have you on our show. But before we get started, I want to let the world know Harmony Power is our charity. Stand up to bullying and stand for human equality. And what our charity has done, we've established the first mandated anti-bullying program in two US major cities. That's worldwide. There's no other city that's done this where children in the thousands are recognized for the good things they do in their community. So they have 33 days to change the world. On the 33rd day, they get the Harmony Power Award. It's Universal Harmony Day for what they did that was good. And it doesn't matter how small or how big, they all get it. And the rule, the mandate is that 1 out of 3 in the city has to do it. So to mandate love was my objective, because when I traveled the country, I realized that the only time children, well, most of the time, children being recognized for negative behavior, they get suspended, expelled, they go to jail, unless they're a super athlete or they're really smart. But the majority were kind of like being pushed out, and they're wanting to know, why is there so much bullying? Why are there so many mass shootings? Is because when child feels unloved, they become an adult and they're going to express all that anger and being ignored. It's like, you don't recognize me, now you will. And they're going to express it. So it's so critical that the world gets on board with this movement, this Harmony Power movement. So not only do I recognize children, but I recognize adults that I feel are so deserving of the same award for what they do in the world, promoting harmony. So when I saw you had a whole bunch of videos, and I just felt your energy. I said, this guy is for real. I mean, I've seen so many of these videos. So every once in a while, I'll say, you know what, this person had a real experience. It's a beautiful story. And it's so important that you're seen as much as possible so that people, it's not just about hope. I know, in my knowing, there's a divine. I've had so many powerful experiences that I can share. But this show is so much about you. I'll intervene with some of my experience, but tell your story about how you passed away, what happened, all the things you saw, the messages that you came back with were very profound about love. So please
Oh,
take
that
the.
was the main messages that I've came back with was love and service, and my intuition has grown to the senses of my intuition is so strong. That part is amazing. But my near-death experience itself started, it happened in 1994. And I was out in Tucson, Arizona, doing a trade show that we did every year. I was in the jewelry business, and I had jewelry and watches, and I've already been in it for 10 years or so. At this time of my life, I had a couple of retail outlets in South Florida for my sales, and I was doing about 30 some odd trade shows a year. And while out in Tucson this particular year, it's they hold the biggest gem and jewelry show in the world.
Mhm.
Basically, people from all over the world come there, from dealers in South America, dealers in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, in Asia, basically all over the world. Actually, it's different than every other show we do during the year. The shows that we do during the year are in one convention center. This show is held up in the whole city. So the convention center is filled with vendors. All the hotel ballrooms are filled with vendors. And like I said, people have to book way in advance even to get a hotel room for that 2-week show. It's a long show, but it was a very good show for us. And every year it happened in flu season. This was their February show, and every year there was usually something running around, some kind of bacterial or viral type of flu thing. But this year there was a killer virus or flu running around. at the time, they didn't recognize what it was, the officials. It was too soon for them to recognize what it was because it hit so strong in that area, and everybody was starting to get ill. I mean, I was in a big setup called the Holodome, and it was sort of like this gigantic inside circus tent, but with regular flooring in it, and they had, it was pumped in air and air conditioned from the outside. And don't forget, we're in Tucson, Arizona, where it's a very deserty like.
Mhm.
And they were bringing in this air, and people are starting to get sick all around.
That's
I
true.
mean, I've had people right across from me in another booth. I remember on the third day, one lady just collapsed and went to the floor. And prior to my business experience in the jewelry business, I was a paramedic in Miami. And I went over to see how she was, and I was trying to make her comfortable, and she was just sweating profusely and not doing good. So they called a ambulance in, and the paramedics finally came. The only thing I could do at the time was try to make her comfortable. And then I went back and went along with my business for the day. It was a very, very busy show, and we were actually doing very well. But on the fourth day, I woke up, John, I couldn't breathe. My throat was so swollen. And at the time, I had something else that affected this illness as well. I had something called sleep apnea,
Right.
which I had no idea at that time. At that time, I was 42 years old. I was very healthy, but I had the sleep apnea, and I think because of the virus and the sleep apnea, that even made it worse. So I went to the hospital, and the hospital lines, people were all over the place. And I remember them saying it's a better idea if a lot of us went to different medical clinics. So they sent us to a medical clinic, and they took me in right away there, and they had beds set up, and they set up a IV, and they didn't know if it was viral or really bacterial at the time. So they set up IV with antibiotics in them. And I remember them telling me my oxygen levels were very, very, very low. So they had me hooked up to oxygen. And after about two, I believe, IV bags went into my body, I believe that my oxygen levels came up. And I was there for quite a while. But I believe they came over to me. I think the oxygen level was normal at the time, they said. And they said, if I feel the same way tomorrow, to definitely get myself in the hospital, because I had a fever. My throat was so swollen, I could hardly breathe as it was. So they sent me back. I went back to my hotel room there. And John, that night turned into a night of light and love. I actually fell off into a deep sleep. I remember, John, exactly how I left my body. I left my body. I saw myself leave my body. I heard myself take my last breath. I left my body in this beautiful, glowing, fluorescent mist. It was like the color of life. It was this green, but it was so magnified. It was sort of like you see up north in the spring when the ferns are so bright green, but magnify that like 100 or 1,000 times. It was beautiful. And now I remember hovering. This was so clear, so profound. I remember hovering, looking down upon myself, just like in many, many other near-death experiences. A lot of people, when they leave their body, they looking down upon themselves. I remember watching my body and how cumbersome and pain that must have been in. But when I finally recognized, I believe when my soul, my spirit recognized that that body had no life left into it, the minute that I thought that in my head, this beam from behind me comes through of light, and it just automatically turned me. And I was drawn into this magnificent gateway, this beautiful tunnel of light and love. By this time, I was already feeling this love. It was a profound love. It was a love like you can't explain on this side. But now I'm drawn into this tunnel, and this tunnel is made up of beautiful colors, and I start moving faster and faster. I remember it's drawing me faster and faster. And I'm feeling like I'm actually moving through the cosmos, through the heavens. It was magnificent. I remember seeing colors and nebulas, and these colors were whizzing by me and through me. So I'm in this magnificent tunnel, and as it's drawing me faster and faster, the love is growing and growing and growing. But it was all I felt. This is what I felt, John. I felt nothing but protected and loved. And I felt like I was becoming part of this love, actually physically becoming part of the light. And then I remember my arrival. I will never forget this. My arrival, I would call heaven, because I believe in God, and I'm Christian. But what I saw there was magnificent. I was greeted in heaven by spirits, beautiful spirits. And it was like family and friends.
Yeah, say something just for the
Yes, of course, John, of course.
just for the viewers, because as we get deeper into the details, is that you're Christian. I follow Jesus. I have Buddhist beliefs, but what we are clear on is that God is love, and whatever people believe in, if it's love based, this is like spokes in the tire to this light that you are experiencing. So that
it's all connected, John. It doesn't matter if we're Christian, Buddhist, Hindu.
We follow what we know, but we're going to get to that loving place if we've been that love in our life as the primary. I do believe that people can experience what's dark if that's all they projected, and eventually even they can go to the light. I believe that that's as well, that no matter what we're experiencing, at some point, if we can't take that darkness anymore, whatever we're rejecting, eventually we go to the light. Everyone gets to that, back to God, back to the source of which we came from. And I just wanted to share that, so when viewers are watching, I want them to feel inclusive, that what they believe, as long as it's love-based, they're going to appreciate what you're about to share, because it's very detailed. So please go ahead.
Oh, it's what you just said is in my story further down. It's exactly that way. Actually, all the religions out there, I believe the core part of the religion, I wrote about it in my book, but the core part of religion is love.
Right.
And that part is a beautiful thing that unites us all.
Mm-hmm.
God is God, and that's all there is to it. Mm-hmm. So
beautiful things.
In my belief, it doesn't matter what religion you are, as long as you're a good, loving human being and person. So
let's talk about the family that you saw, the angels. You got all this good stuff, the Akashic records, other stuff.
Well, that part's magnificent. As I'm communicating now, don't forget, everything is done telepathy now. So things are actually put in your well, I'll call it in your mind. You hear the voices inside, and they hear you, and you know exactly, and they know exactly what you're both communicating about. And I felt it was family and friends. And then all of a sudden I get this soft whisper in my ear, says, "Yes, Bill, you're home. You're home in the light of God." And I actually turn, and this beautiful, glowing white, beautiful angel appeared in front of me, and she says, "My name is Antonia, and I was with you on your journey home." John, I was moving so fast, I didn't even realize. Yes. I had no idea that anybody was accompanying me back. But this was a beautiful, beautiful angel, just filled with love. The love would radiate off her. And she explained to me how she actually takes me home, and she was my angel that took me in and takes me home. And then she said, I am one of your 3 angel guardians. Well, she's called them guardians. And I remember saying telepathically, my angels.
Yeah.
And she says, you have 2 others. That well, as soon as she had 2 others, I remember hearing this voice, John. And this voice was my brother Peter's voice. I heard him say, hello, Billy. And the way he said it, it was in his voice. I had a much, much older brother than me. He was like 15, almost 16 years older than me.
Yes.
And he was 30 years old when he passed away. I was only about to be maybe 16 or 15. I was 15, I believe, at the time. And he's the one that actually brought me up in life. He took care of me because my dad was very, very busy. My dad was a president of local 804, the Teamsters Union, which was United Parcel back in those days. And my brother was the one around all the time that took me to the ball games. He took me to the circus, as I was very young. And I was so, so close to my brother. And then when he died, when I was only 15, I really turned to God at that time. Because I remember praying and praying, why did they take him? Why did they take him? But getting back to the story now, I said, yes, Billy, it's Peter. And at that point, there wasn't too much conversation. At that point, he says, it's time for your life review. And I didn't know. I said, what is a life review? What is that? And the next thing you know, we're whisked off to this beautiful other illuminated area. And I'm seeing, I would call them buildings of crystal and light and beauty. And I'm in this magnificent area now, and they are starting to show me, John, all the things in my actual physical life that I've done in the past. I remember the start of it. I believe the start of it was the bad things first. I remember them showing me the bad things first because I remember getting to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Well, kids, we all do little, stupid things, and I feel like I've never done anything really, really bad. But have I hurt people in life? Oh, yes, I've hurt people in life. And I remember them showing me things, little things over and over again, things that were not right, that were maybe wrong. But then when it got to the point of them showing me when I left my first wife, the pain, and I had a child, my older son, Joey now, that's 45 years old. I had a child at the time. He was only 2. And I believe at that time in my life, I was going through a very selfish period that I didn't really recognize the pain that I created. Yes. But on the other side, John, on the other side, when you're in this life review, you actually feel the pain. You become the pain. This is the first time you see yourself back in your own physical body. So I'm standing there by Peter, and they're showing me this, and it's almost like a real flickering so fast.
Yes.
That like a computer. Yes.
It's important.
Did you have a question?
It's important to feel that pain, to know what we've done, so that the soul can evolve. It cannot evolve without feeling the pain that we've either endured ourselves or what we caused upon other people. You cannot deny that. There's no evolution without confronting that and feeling that, so that we can progress forward. So that's why the life review for you is an incredible gift for you to see and feel your reality, so that you come back to this reality with you're in a higher place in yourself to give back to humanity. So go ahead. So you're in that life review, and you were looking at, from what I remember, from what I saw,
this life review, and now I'm feeling this pain that I caused my ex-wife. God rest her soul. She passed away from a cancer too, and it was the same actually type of cancer. She passed away when she was 50. Yeah. But I'm feeling this pain that I caused, that I didn't realize I caused that much pain, but I became the physical pain, John. And you feel it so strong. It gets so strong and so hard. I remember getting to a point where I can't take it anymore. Please, please, please forgive me. I said, please forgive me. And all of a sudden, that grayness fell down, and now they're showing me clips of my life, of the good side of things. They're showing me clips of my life when I was a young boy. You know, my mom and dad did all right for themselves. We weren't rich, but my mom owned a bar and grill across the street from Ebbets Field where the Brooklyn Dodgers played. And
Yes.
it was an amazing youth growing up that I had.
Amazing era of time. Yeah, because we're both, you know, originally I lived in Brooklyn for my first 11 years, so I can remember some of
Oh,
the things that don't
and then you moved out to the island? Was that it?
I moved to Long Island after that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Brooklyn 11 years, and then another 8 years in New Hyde Park, which is in the Queens border. But all the Brooklyn kids moved there, so I never really got away from Brooklyn because it kind of moved. So it's,
Right.
you know, but yeah, I don't want us to detour. That's a whole other it's a whole other conversation. But I want to hear about this life review, not just the pain. You saw things that happened in history with
Yeah, that gets on to the next stage. That's what I call the Hall of Events. A lot of people call it Akasha Records.
Yeah,
But to finalize up on the good side of things,
because you did a lot of good things. So you got the
yeah, the good things they started coming in early. They started showing me things when I was a young boy, and I used to, you know, my mom used to give me money. She actually used to give me money for me and my friends.
Yeah.
So you know, my friends, you know, maybe they weren't okay. You know, some of their families had trouble with, you know, money and things. But I would take all my friends. We'd go to Coney Island. We'd ride all the rides together.
Yeah.
Go to the movies, do things. You know, had a blast.
You give the money. You give what was given to you. You give it to your friends. Yeah.
Yes, yes. That's the way we grew up. And they didn't take advantage of me by any means, because they would be there for me for anything. Anything. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience I had growing up. I mean, we all grew up as youngsters together.
I didn't have that kind of
Older.
experience, but just so you know, I was the bully character in Brooklyn. It was just endless. But I can certainly rejoice in your experience for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was a lot of that going on as well.
Yeah.
I remember that I was always, for some reason, in the 4th or 5th grade, I shot up to almost 6 foot. I was a little over 6 foot tall, and everybody was 4'8" or 5'4".
Yeah.
You know,
You were
it was
good.
like a foot taller, and I didn't have too much of the bullying problems, but I could understand that because I'm the one that used to jump in for my friends all the time. I would jump in for my friends, and they showed me this too, more than I would jump in for myself.
Yeah. Well, that's
like I would try to avoid, you know, problems.
you're trying to stop the violence. Your intention was always
Yeah.
to stop the violence. So they were showing you all the love that you gave that it.
Oh, I could tell you some stories about that. It was insane. Some of the things we had happened growing up. You know, true stories of things, a crazy thing. But the point is they showed me all these nice things, but then they got to a point. See, when I was in New York City, I graduated from art and design, so I was a commercial artist. But right away after I became an artist, my first wife and we got married and decided we wanted to live in Florida. So I moved down to Florida, you know, being a little naive at the time, you know, a lot younger, in my early 20s, and there was no way of doing a lot of investigation. I just assumed that every major city in the country had advertising firms, because I was working for Triad Studios in Manhattan, and they were a subsidiary of Benton and Bowles, which was the biggest, one of the biggest advertising agencies in the city at the time. So I had a really nice little portfolio that I've been working on for a while. And I moved to Florida. I said, I'll have no problem getting a job. Thank God my wife, she was a legal secretary. You know, we both graduated school about the same time, and then we got married, and now we're down there, and now, you know, I can't find a job. So I do a lot of these little type of jobs, and some of them were, some things that came out of those things were miraculous. But I became a paramedic, and that's what I became in Miami. So
Oh,
I was a paramedic, and as I was a paramedic, they showed me
yes.
all these things that I did.
And there was
You
that
have a
one
question?
story, yeah, there was that one story with the little girl.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You have a lot of stories, but that's the one that I saw in one of your other amazing clips. So yeah, that was a beautiful thing you did. So please tell our viewers what you did and why, why God said, here, look what you did. Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, we got to one of the parts of my life review. It was my partner and I, after we picked up our unit downtown Miami, we were heading up to our station in North Miami Beach. And a call comes over the radio. Now I hear the call. It's being sent to one of the other drivers at our station because we had 3 units there. And we're already on 79th Street when that call comes over the radio because we didn't actually check into the station yet. So I pick up the mic right away and I said, this is 69F and we're on 79th Street, 995. And the call was on 135th Street heading north on I-95. We were less than a 2-minute ride away. I picked up the call right away on the mic and I said, call off the other unit and we will pick up the call. So they did. And actually, by the time I got finished talking, we were already at about 112th Street. And it's very close, less than a minute away now from the accident. We got on the accident. And
Yes.
all we've seen when we first jumped out of the unit, I jumped out of the unit with my medic bag and my partner jumped out. And we've seen this little boy, he was running around, and then he just sits on the floor and he starts screaming. And he said, my sister, my sister. And me and my partner glance over at once because the way the car was positioned.
Yes.
And we saw it, it was horrific. The girl's head was through the window. Well, the top part of her head was through the window. The top part of her head was on one side of the windshield, and it looked like the windshield was dug right up into her cranium.
Yeah.
And now we thought because there was so much, there was massive bleeding.
And
Everybody
you have to make a serious decision there because by the time you wait for help,
that
yeah.
was instinctively, it was almost instinctively because we looked at each other. We had to assess the situation. We said, if we wait for the fire truck, the physical fire truck to come with the cutters on it, I said, we both said she'll die immediately. So I jumped outside of the car. We were both inside the car, one on each side of her, and trying to figure out, because she still had movement in her body, but she was sort of unconscious. And I remember going outside of the car and lifting up the top part of her head and pushing it through to Danny.
Oh, God.
Danny's now holding the head down. Then he hands it to me and he runs around and gets the stretcher. And we put her on the stretcher. And I got my hand on one hand on her head, trying to hold the top part of her head down.
Does it come apart? Yeah.
This part was just horrific. It was, when you see this, it's hard to see. So we get her in the unit.
Yeah.
We put her in the unit. Now I'm trying to manage a bandage on top of her head to hold it down. And then she starts seizing. And, I don't know if you ever witnessed the seizure, John, but the body starts to jump and shake and
like neurological shock to the body. The fact that
yes,
it's not intact. So it's creating nerve damage. Yeah.
Exactly. So her brother's in the back of the unit with me, and I yell out, God help me. I was yelling to the brother, but I really believe I had divine intervention there. Because in my life review, when I'm holding the bandages and the gauze pad now on top of her head now, because she couldn't hold it, I was holding her underneath her back and the top of her head down with my hands. And I saw in my life review, not when it actually happened, in my life review, I saw Peter's hand come in on that head.
I believe that. Yeah. I believe.
And this was unbelievable that we got her to Parkway General. I mean, in my book, it says Pines General because I think that's the new name of the hospital. It was Parkway General at the time. And the nurses took her right off. She went right off into the operating rooms. And that whole day was just a mess. I was a mess. I was a mental mess. We went back to the unit. The station. We got new change of clothes, got ready for the day, did our shift. But the next morning, I got up really early. We did have a chance to sleep some nights, and we didn't sleep through the whole night, but we had a couple hours. And I got up early, and I said to Danny, I woke him up and said, "We got to go to Parkway." And I never did this, John. I never did this in the years that I was. I said, he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, you have to understand. I said, Danny, I, I, I have this strong sense of feeling. Please, I want to go to Parkway and see how that girl. Now it was out of the way. It was about 5 miles out of our way, one way, and 5 miles back. So that's why I was trying to get on up early. So he finally said, "Okay, Billy," but he says, "Don't expect anything." Like, because we assumed she was dead because of the loss of blood.
Right.
We got into the hospital, John. I remember walking through the doors. We knew many nurses in the emergency room, and I asked, I believe her name was Becky. I said, "Becky, how about the young lady we brought in yesterday?" I said, "What happened?" And she says, "Do you want to meet her?" And John, the hair stood up on my back and my arms. It was a feeling like unbelievable. She took us up to the room. This young girl, she must have been about 17 or 18 years old. She's sitting up in bed having jello or something, and her whole head had this giant bandage on the top, but only little scrapes on her face, which was good because where she was cut was the
they kept
hairline.
intact, right? Yep.
And her brother jumped up and said, "This is the man that saved your life." And then the parents were there, and it was just
The
like
emotion
feeling
of that, the
like
emotion
that.
of that is so like, it's so breathtaking, all the
You're
tears,
right. It was
emotion,
beautiful.
right, to save a life in the way that you did, and was so delicate. It really just takes your breath away. So
Yeah, that part that was unbelievable. I mean, they showed all these things to me because I guess I was fortunate because I had that type of career and I did
yes,
so many things
but
in
this
that
is big.
career.
This is big, but I have to ask you, so you're in the whole of events, I'm thinking, did they strap on some wings for you? Give you some
No, we're
flying?
still in a life review now. Now the life review is
Yeah,
about to end.
please, I'm anticipating. I'm saying, where's the wings? Give this guy some
No,
wings, will you?
no wings yet, but this is what did happen.
Go ahead.
When at sort of after they showed me few more things, I remember everything, all that came down, and I remember hearing, "Now, you did good." And in my mind, I was saying the good outweighs the bad.
Yeah.
Thank God the good outweighed the bad. And now when I get back and we're all standing there, now it's Peter, Antonia, and me. And Antonia says, "Bill, look at yourself." And I looked down, and now I turned from this glowing green, beautiful mist into this beautiful beam of light, which I look like them now.
Mhm.
It was beautiful.
Right.
It was a beam of light, just like the other spirits I met there. And it
Right.
was magnificent.
Yeah.
And that's when my third guardian appeared. And when the third guardian started his conversation with me, I recognized him like I knew him my whole life. This my book as name was Orin. I didn't know if it was Orin or Oron. I wrote in the book Oron, but I don't know exactly how he was introduced by name. But this was the person that was with me my whole life. I believe Peter was with me when I called on to God, but this was Oron was my intuition. You know how you hear
Yeah.
someone speaking in your ear sometime, whether something's right or wrong?
I've been walking out of my sleep with a voice, which that's another story. But yeah, yeah. So that's very real.
Isn't the truth?
Very real.
It's amazing. We all have this. We all have angels around us.
We
Our
all
whole
do. And people will look at me and they'll look at me like, you're gifted or they're, and I'm like, no, we're all gifted. We all have
We all have.
Everything else that you want to experience is just, are you willing to be open to that? Obviously, having a belief system that protects you, that's positive, so that you can be open to what comes to you and allowing the experience to be. Or when we're every day, when we have a voice that's guiding us, we'll say, well, is it my voice or is it somebody else's voice? Well, if it's something that you can't repeat again, highly likely that you've been guided if you can't repeat what you just said, because then it's not you.
And when you know it's the wrong thing, because usually they're guiding you on the right path.
Right. If it's something, obviously, if it's, if it's negative, then it's not coming from a good source, and I'll connect to
Exactly.
my belief system immediately to kind of reground yourself that way.
And that's amazing, because we have that our whole life.
Yes.
We have that feeling in us. It comes to us when we're about to do something, or
Exactly.
head on a new venture somewhere,
Right.
or something tells you if something's right or wrong. Like it's just quite. That's the part that interests me very highly the most. And Noran said that, I remember them telling me that they were going to take me to this is where we talk about the Akasha records. In my book, I call it the Hall of Events, because that's how I seen it.
These are just names, but clearly you're looking at
Yeah.
at life in the most expansive way, from its beginning to its end, but you're getting glimpses and flashes of things that you're trying, they're amazing. The September 11th story was a brilliant one with the number 6. Like, my numbers have been 17 and 33 my whole life. Like, from a past
Oh,
life,
you've had numbers. A
Oh,
lot of people
like
do.
like I'll see them all the time. We're driving and I'll see 33 like 100 times, like literally just constantly, and then 17. And there were significant monumental moments in my life that were very powerful with those numbers my whole life, from childhood till now. It still continues. And these are beautiful signs when people can see numbers, to see where things are going, like the direction of things. These are angels that are guiding us, and
That's awareness. That is your angels trying to give you a message.
right. So with the 6s, I mean, that was like, it had wow all over. I'm like, you can't, like, when you were saying, I'm like, this guy can't make this story up. Like, this is like ridiculous. I mean, come on. So tell our viewers, people are watching, what you saw, right? I knew that our country would be attacked in 10 years during the Gulf War. I felt it, and I told my commander to give me an early out, an honorable discharge, and they did that because I was so mad at the reasons that were in that first war, in the Gulf War. And I said, they're going to attack our soil in 10 years because we did some awful things. But every country has things. I love my country. I'm a proud American.
I do too.
But but I think more for humanity than I am American. That being said, our soil was attacked because that was my intuition. Yours was even deeper with numbers. I was like, what's that about? You saw this, you were shown it. You were shown
Yeah,
it.
me too. In the Hall of Events, it started off. Now it wasn't all the stuff about me. Now it was things about real important things that happened, not only through my lifetime, but they showed me the past, the present, and the future. And it started out past. They're showing me wars. John, I wasn't in. I believe it was either World War II or Korea. I had uncles, and I believe my dad might have been in. But the thing is, I wasn't alive then. I was born in 1952. So I was alive for the end of the Korean War, I guess. And my Uncle Paulie was there. But then it went on to, I remember I was in like a flickering screen. It was almost like a computer sequence. And I'm in a flickering screen, and they would take me from event to event. And then it stopped. And I remember it stopping. And I'm sitting in my classroom, and it was 1963. And I remember the principal of the school getting over the microphone, as all classes had a microphone in the room at the time back in those years. And he said that John F. Kennedy was just shot, and they just dismissed the whole school.
Mm-hmm.
So they when they dismissed the school, we all went home early. And I remember getting home, and my mother and the lady that she had working with us was both crying on the table. And I said, "Hey, Mom, I understand. I know why you're in such pain, because JFK just got killed." And I felt that I went with them. I was crying with them. We all loved John F. Kennedy at the time. And from that experience, they took me further on, and I seen things like the killings, right, all along the way, all major stuff. Martin Luther King, Bobby, going into the end of the Vietnam War. I remember that part. I remember them showing me things, people coming out of Vietnam. I remember them taking me now past my near-death experience, and that's what you were just talking about, 9/11. We stopped at 9/11. I believe me and Peter was standing at the base of 9/11. There was little fire things where people were running. And John and I had this instinct to run with them. And Peter grabbed me and said, "Bill, you don't have to run." And remember, now we're not in that beam of light. We're in our physical bodies. When we're in the Hall of Events and the life review, this is all physical. It was showing like it was real.
You
It
know,
was like you were part of
like,
every scene.
like you're back on Earth again, right? In it.
Yes. No, it was exactly. You're in the scene.
But I wonder why in the life reviews they're showing the all these disasters. They're not showing all the amazing things that occurred. They're showing all the dark.
Oh, wait, you get to see that too.
Okay,
That's
please.
That's part of the future events. Some of the future. We have choices to make in the future. That's what I have to say. But in the Hall of Events, they show you these things because I guess they were important parts of our history. And I remember the debris flying down, and he said to me, Peter said, "Bill, what do you feel?" And Orrin said, "What do you feel?" And I said, "I don't feel anything." Everything was so clear to us, but you could tell everybody that was running didn't see anything. And I remember saying, I have friends in that building. And I was emotional at the time. I have friends in that building, I said. The next thing, they whisked me off. We whisked from one scene to another. And the next thing, I believe we were the Baghdad, because I was running again. It was instinct. There was bombs going off due to the way the people were dressed. I knew I was somewhere in the Middle East, and there was bombs going off, and people were running, and I felt like I had to run. But again, I was told I didn't have to run. Now, this is the most important part. They take me to a point in time which I believe are today's time. I believe it's the things that's happening today with everything, even this new AI. And my first book I wrote about that back in early 2000, that jobs were going to be disappearing, and we have to use this technology for good and not to hurt people, like, take away from their jobs and things like that.
I'll briefly say something to that. You're 100% right. I don't believe, I know that if humanity chose to use the technology, I've seen things with my eyes. I've seen vertical agriculture where people are growing food in an abandoned building, like showing how these machines are put in. They're growing this healthy green vegetation and using.
Oh yeah.
People come out of prison. This guy was hiring them, giving them jobs with medical, and these guys were working, and I was meeting them. I was running for Congress at one point, and I wanted to go and see what the answers were, what the real solutions were to the real problems that we have. All the answers are there. So the solutions are actually rather simple. And it's the people and the egos and the greed that's very complex, because it's a belief system ingrained in people thinking that it's never enough. We're already infinite, but yet they're looking for the infinite, and then they want to control. This control thing is part of our DNA. We have to let go of the control and allow the divine to take the divine of which we are to take over, and that's the real power that we are. And then everybody's in abundance. So that's when you talked about the potential for the utopia, I'm a strong believer in that possibility.
Yes.
I'm a strong believer because the fact that they would try to create, humanity trying to create so many ways it can self-destroy is the most ludicrous, devastating idea. They should be having meetings about how they can dismantle everything and how they can collaborate and make it a one world peaceful place where there's open borders and everything's interconnected and everybody's eating and everyone has a medical. All these things are not a new age fancy. These are real ideas that are extremely possible, but it means that the people at the very top, I always say, like I've trained a lot of the 1% people complain about. There's good ones, bad ones in the middle. And just like anybody else, people who are poor, you got good ones, bad ones, everything in the middle. So never to classify. But when you have billionaires that are considered bad, it is devastating.
Yeah.
And that is the issue. When you have few dictators in the world, or a few people that control so much and they put on a face of being kind when they're actually very dark inside and cold. So that's the struggle. Once that could be rid of in some way, or these people learn about loving themselves for real, and if they really love themselves, they wouldn't be wanting to take from everybody because they feel good about who they were. But these were once children who were ignored, not loved, and shown a lot of things. So back to you and back to this hall of events, and you got.
Well, yeah, at the end, the hall of events part, the thing about the good and the bad was so pronounced. It was so right up front and clear to me. We have choices to make. We have this. It's not hard. We should be doing things like service. Right now, a lot of our cities, big cities in the country that are so beautiful, some of them are falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And we all could agree on one thing, John. I believe this. We could agree on taking care of our children, keeping them safe. We could agree on these things. We could agree on we all need a law-abiding society. Things have to get normalized again. And that's why I believe that this part was so strong, that they showed me the good it could turn into, and they showed me the bad that it could turn into. We're a society that should be cleaning up, like San Francisco, for example. I know people out there that just quit their jobs as police officers because they couldn't take it anymore. But the thing is, we're a society that could take care of these people in the streets. We should be building tent cities for them. Bring them in. If they're on drugs, we should try to clean them up, get them off the drugs, make them have a purpose in life again.
100%.
Do the right thing for them. And the biggest thing is protect the children. God wants our children safe. It's very important.
It's everything.
So service and to protect the children, because those children are our future. And that's the important part. Now, these things could be done. This is not impossible to do. There's billions and billions of dollars being spent. Now, sometimes I think on the wrong things. But if we transfer some of those funds into doing the right thing, what could this world become?
Let me say
a utopia.
It couldn't be a utopia, but I'm going to say this to you. With Harmony Power and this movement, I have proven that with little to no money at all, actually it was only my money, but I've seen schools recognize kids in the thousands, kids crying because they never got anything. Nobody ever recognized them for anything. Kids that were angry, and then they were recognized for something good that they did, even though they were a troublemaker. I've watched so many reversals of just very angry, unloved children become loved and change for the better. That mandate, it needs to be a worldwide mandate that every school's doing it. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's Harmony Power for us, and I'll be meeting with one of the heads of New York City for all 5 boroughs in August, because we've been in the talks for 6 years now, and I'm excited at that. So when you talked about the children,
well, if you need help, I'll be alongside you.
I got a feeling this relationship's not going to stop after this.
I don't think so, John.
So,
It's going to be a strong one.
yeah. So, you know,
This
back,
came,
yeah. What's that? Tell me.
we came to a point in the final part
Yes.
was they brought me into a beautiful spot of illumination with angels all around, all around. My guardians were there, and there was these magnificent angels. And this is where we were talking about earlier. You brought up the numbers and everything.
Mhm.
I remember distinctly being within this group, the wisdom and knowledge that was just radiating from them.
Mhm.
I was blessed to be given these principles of life, these beautiful principles, 9 principles of life that is so important. But I remember, just to tell you how this started, because it's almost like they all took turns explaining things to me. And the beauty of it is, I remember this one angel came we were right beside each other, and this light is so glowing and strong. And I'm seeing a number sequence, John, with numbers floating down, crystal. Everything to me on the other side reminded me of crystal and the universe. So I see these beautiful numbers floating down in sequence,
Mhm.
numbers and symbols. And every time certain numbers would pass, they'd light, light, light. I would get the ones would light, 8s would light, 3, 6, 9s would light. These numbers are the primary numbers, 1 to 9. There's zeros are there, but the number 9 is the highest number in the universe. That's how it was explained to me.
Yes.
It was explained to me that I have a life path number. My life path number was 3. And I understand what that meant now, because I turned around to my 3 guys. I remember saying, "Are you the Holy Trinity?" I remember saying this. And I felt at that time I was speaking to God. It was unbelievable. Now they're telling me that I had an alert system number that was 666. And John, I knew this particular number my whole life. I had it my whole life. Good things, great things happen with 66. But not too good things happened also with the number 66. At any time during a 1-day period, sometimes I'd see that number 20 times.
Yeah.
It would just appear in front of me. I'd look up, I'm at exit 66. I look down at my watch at 6 past 6. I'm talking about, I seen it on the billboard. I would see it everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd hear it on the radio. And it would just alert me that something was going to happen.
Yep.
Good or bad. So it doesn't necessarily mean bad. It could be good too.
And bad
Because
can be good. Bad can, if you're a loving person, as you are, bad always leads to good. Anything bad becomes good. It's like if you're in that mindset, right? You know, there's
yes,
a silver lining. It's more than a silver lining. To be in a loving space only becomes love. Like what you think about
oh,
all the time, you are, and you're going to experience that. So if you want love in your life, you have to be that love you want to experience. This is what people are not getting. But they got to get it so that humanity could not just coexist, it can thrive. Once they really understand that, it'll thrive. Yeah.
to experience love, all you have to do is become love, John, and give that love
Yes.
to others in service. Help others like you're doing with your foundation. You're bringing enlightenment into the world. And that's what I'd like to do with this new message. And this, my new book is called The Ninth Level of Enlightenment, The Wisdom of the Light. But I remember getting much more knowledge from these numbers. These numbers created and turned my life into something that was wonderful. I was told that the universe has a number system that we live on, and Buddhism and Hinduism, they use the number 108. The 18 is the number, the theory number on everything. The number 108, if you look in Buddhism, there's 108 prayer beads. and they pronounce 108 prayers. In Hinduism, they have 108 and everything, and steeples on their
With all,
chapels.
share with them, with your daughter, and the number 6.
Oh yeah, I will.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say these numbers that they showed me coincide with everything they talk about. The 369, like the Tesla numbers, these are angel numbers.
Hmm.
And then finally, this angel approaches me. Beautiful young spirit, beautiful. She says to me, I must return. I must return. And I did everything. John, I tell you, it was my life. I was begging for my life to stay. I wanted to stay. I kept on saying, I'm in the light of God. I'm part of this light now. I want to stay. And she said again, you must return. And I didn't understand. I kept saying, I said, well, why are you sending me back? Why? Why? And the last thing she said was, Dad, you must return. And now I'm brought back. She said, Dad, you must return. I am 6 of 6. Now I'm being pushed back. And I feel like I'm in a vortex, being pulled back into my body. I remember when I awoke, I had no air in my body. So the only thing that physically moved on my body was my throat. So it was like I had to take an air. I had just like that, as deep as I could possibly get air going. But now I'm lying back in my physical body. The near-death experience is over. I'm back here now. So I left home to come back here. That is our home over there. I just wanted to make that very clear. This is just a temporary abode for us. This is where we learn, experience, and feel. So I'm in this body, and now the body itself is not moving. My physical body is like it's paralyzed.
You first got in there, right?
When I first got back in there, I was frightening at that period. And then after some minutes went by, I remember feeling tingles going all through my body. It must have been the blood reflowing again, because now I got some sensation in my arms and legs. And I remember reaching over, grabbing the phone. I think I called to hit the 0 for the operator in the hotel, and I said, I need help. And next thing you know, I'm in the hospital. But my daughter, I have to say this one more thing. That whole dad thing went over the top of my head because I was pleading for myself to stay.
Mhm.
And the dad thing went over the top of my head because I didn't know if it had to do with my son. Billy was about to be born. He was born September of 1994. The
Right.
show was in February of 1994. So my wife was home and she was pregnant. And I thought it related to that, the 6 of 6 thing. But in the year 2000, on the 6th month of the 6th day, June the 6th, I had a beautiful daughter. And she was born that day, and she's with us today.
That's amazing. Wow.
So that's the story,
That says everything.
exactly how that happened.
That's
I'm
what
telling you, it's an experience of love.
Yeah. Your story is so genuine because it's so the way you come from your heart space and the details that go with it is very profound. And that's why I had to have you on this broadcast, because to me it was like, wow. Now, these 9 principles you talked about, I wrote them down. Can I read them to you?
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
We have to do a whole other show, and I'd rather than buy your book, but I'm just going to give people a snapshot of what they are. So if they want to buy your book, they can do that, and they could read the story.
Yeah, because each principle really has about 4 pages, but you're going to read them off.
Yeah, but I did my homework here, so here we go. All right.
Okay.
So I kind of summarized it. You can correct it as you wish. Number 1, do not take a life, right?
Right.
Number 2, listen to your intuition. 3, know the power of your choice. 4,
Right.
serve. with your time. 5.
Exactly.
5, I wrote, thank God. Gratitude will enlarge your spirit to be in gratitude. And
Right.
6, always look for the lessons, particularly when we're going through a perceived painful experience. Look for the lessons, seek the lessons. 7,
We get them every day.
yes, know the power of love that we are. Know that power, not just believe, know it, feel it. 8, protect your body. That means, to be healthy, to not hurt yourself, protect
Right.
And 9 is protecting the earth, because without protecting the earth, we cannot exist without protecting the earth. So that's,
Right. She's the jugular source of our life.
did I do well? Did I do my
You
homework well?
did excellent.
I
I mean, there's a lot involved in each.
each one has a lot of detail. It's important that people read it. I simplify it, but it's important that people get the information. Like you sent me your book as a file that was able to kind of go through that and
Right.
simplify it, but it's important to read, because reading also, what reading does, it trains the subconscious, right? It goes all these words you're thinking of, and you're reprogramming your thinking to be in a different light. Not just hear your story, particularly the principles. The commandments were like that. These things were drilled into people, and
Right.
it's there's each principle has a vast way of looking at it, and that's what's important.
Well, the first principle, taking someone's life basically is you're not just taking their life. Their grandchild might have the cure for cancer.
Right.
You change the whole outcome of the whole human experience when you take someone's life. I'm not saying that you can't not protect yourself, of course. In self-defense, you have to protect yourself. And if you're in a war for our country, that's your part of the good, as long as it's the good side.
Yeah, and there are some avenues of debate when it comes to taking a life. Like if somebody
Right.
if half their body is dying and they're crying, I don't want to live, because their body is dead, and they're screaming, and they're trying to keep the guy alive because they
that's
that right? Or then there's the whole abortion thing. Well, if you take the child's life, then you let the child live, they could be living a hellish existence, and that's killing them a different way. Or the mother, it can be quite complex, these things. But I think the simplicity of recklessly taking others' lives, or doing it for ego, or for greed, or for anger,
right. That's what I meant in here.
Yeah, the intention of that is a dark space, and what we take will be taken. So whatever we've done, we'll end up experiencing some way, whether we did a life review, or I believe we come back here, we may have to do it again and again to become part of that light that we are. Because if we don't see the light that we are, we're going to continue to experience what's not light.
Absolutely.
Right. It's just
we
choose in this reality. So that's the thing, is that from this meeting with you, and by the way, I really appreciate you so much. I have to say that people have to know they are the power, and they have to know that their thoughts and their actions have such great magnitude. Like people say, I can't change the world, I have no control. You have so much control with your inner world and the outer world that's immediately around you, and that ripple effect is so powerful. It's like one loving soul, a truly loving soul, is more powerful than 1,000 that are disconnected from their own soul. That's my belief.
Exactly.
So if there's more loving souls, more deeply aware souls that are projecting love and light around them, the planet would shift immediately if they understood that power.
And they have choices. We have choices to make.
Right.
I mean, there's two very, very important things. You pay attention to your intuition. It's so important, because it usually leads you down the bright path.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest importance is the choices in our lives. We have choices to make now. We don't want a world to wind up like the movie Mad Max. We want to be on that utopia side, if you don't understand what I'm saying, John.
Yeah, which we've created scenarios of what Mad Max looks like. Like if you look at Ukraine, that looks like Mad Max.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
It
We
is
could be living in a world where we're begging for food and clean water to drink.
I mean,
I mean, we don't want to get to that point.
we don't. I have a lot of empathy because as a child, I was on the streets with my mother and she struggled with something that is very personal. You know, her
Yeah.
fine now. She's all, you know, it's been clean for years. But I remember the food truck. I remember the traumas. This is 3.5 years being in this on the streets, in and out of places, and so I have that deep empathy, and that's
Yeah.
lacking. If people don't have that struggle, they don't understand what that feels like. It's hard for them to connect to how other people feel, and that's why the population has grown, and in some ways we are more disconnected, but in some ways through the technology we're more connected than ever.
I
That's
think we are more connected than ever.
so it's the
I
power,
really believe that.
and that's what's enabling us to see all the good and evil like we've never seen before. So we do have that choice, like you're saying. We want light, we want darkness. What do we want? We can be exactly what we want to be. And we have to stop pointing the finger at everybody else and say, look at myself. Am I that love and light? If I am that, then I'm doing everything that I can do. But if you're not that, that's the part to work on. Then rather pointing the finger at this person or that person. That's what I see a lot of, that I would love to see change, that people know they have that power.
Well, that's where the service comes in.
Yes,
And we have to serve.
yes,
We have to serve for the good.
yes,
You know, feed the people that are hungry. Do
yes.
the right thing.
It's important because like even homeless people, like I, know what it's like to be homeless. I've gone and talked to homeless people. I've had homeless people will see me. There's one person now, I heard, he will yell my name for a hug, just for a
Ah,
hug.
that's beautiful.
Forget about food. It's New York. There's food there. They got food. Sometimes they're hungry and I'll get them something, but they
Yeah.
got habits. They have mental illness. They need a hug. Who's going to stop and hug a homeless person? They're worried about getting stabbed or worried about something, but you got to look at their eyes. And
Yeah.
it's in public and it's daytime, and and you feel safe. They just need love, and love is the power to change everything. That's what's missing. That's the
One,
greatest need.
one, 100%.
Yeah. But listen,
For that love.
I have to. May I award you now? I want to announce this award to you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but yes.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier that I give the Harmony Power Award is given to thousands of kids, and soon it'll be in the millions, and I'm excited about that. But when I go out of my way personally to do a broadcast with someone, it's not something that I do regularly. It's something that I do randomly with people I feel that are absolutely magnificent, that I want to have an experience with, like I did with you today. So as of today, Bill Tortorella has been awarded this certificate for dedication, commitment, and outstanding efforts in promoting harmony in the world. So this is your certificate. So it's
Oh, how nice.
so it's
Thank
not
you, John.
so not just the angels above that honored you and showed you. I'm showing you here on earth that your story right now to be shared with as many thousands of people or millions of people, because it's quite profound, and it definitely encompasses a lot of what other people experience, but the way that you tell the story with your heart and your passion exudes so much light in itself that I want people to know about you. That's why you
Well, there's much more in the book. I mean, we only touched on the top.
we scratched the surface. Yeah.
We scratched the surface. That was it.
Well, we have to give people something to look forward to. And so how did they get that book from you? Where do they find you?
Okay. I mean, you could go to billtortorella.com. That's BILLTORELLA.com. And actually there's a story about myself on there, and but it has links right to the book. The name of my book is The Ninth Level of Enlightenment, The Wisdom of the Light. And I could give out my Gmail too. I don't mind doing that if people have questions. My Gmail is Bill, again, Bill, Tortorella, Tortorella, @gmail.com.
Fabulous. Bill,
All right.
it's been a great pleasure and honor. Have you
It
on.
was wonderful talking to you, John.
Deeply, deeply appreciate your time. And we'll be meeting up, I'm sure, and talking again, and this
I
relationship.
appreciate it too. I hope we can
Yes,
discuss things a little more and deeper, and the things we could do in service together, maybe to help others,
that's a good,
especially children.
especially children. We will be
Yeah.
talking about that very soon. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you, John. You have a wonderful day.